This is Jerry Mason, the Kickin Lawyer, and I'm inviting everyone to join us every Tuesday at 5 p.m. on the Kickin Lawyer fan page on Facebook for Law Talk Live, where we discuss business, politics, current events, and the law. If you miss the live version, you can watch the playback on YouTube or listen on your favorite podcast platform. All right, Jerry Mason, the Kickin Lawyer. We're live for another Law Talk. I apologize. Last week, if you missed us, we had my brother and I, Josh, our dad, ended up in the hospital, and so he's fine. He's home now, but unfortunately, we weren't able to get a podcast up for last week, so thanks for bearing with us. As always, if you haven't, make sure you like, follow, subscribe to the content. We're on all platforms, YouTube, Spotify, etc. Also, we're on TikTok. That's where you can watch Josh do all those dances.
All the best dances.
Yeah, it's a lot of fun on TikTok. If you haven't already, make sure you download Wonder Girl. It's free. Spotify, iTunes, but from NA the band. Again, their album, I think, is dropping February 14th. Isn't that Valentine's Day?
Yes.
And it's free, so no reason to not go check that out. And then Michelle Allen's been a longtime sponsor of the show. If you're buying, selling, renting, leasing real estate, she's glad to help you. She can also guide you towards other professionals in the area. She's well-liked and known and can help you. Mason's High Octane Martial Arts should be relocating in the next 2 weeks to a bigger location, but it's located here in Covington since 1993 or 4. I forget now the year. We're coming up on 30 years, so whatever that means. Yeah, a long time with that business. And then, of course, the Cellar Restaurant Prohibition Bar is located off the square here in Covington. Hoping to open our second location in Somerville around April, May this year. But the one in Covington is open at 4 p.m. every day. Great food, great drinks. Come visit us at the Cellar. And then Masonite Digital Marketing. Josh is glad to help you with your brand, online presence, social media posts, websites, etc. So with that all out of the way, I have one of my good friends I really enjoy talking with off the air too, Mr. Brandon Armstrong. How are you, Brandon?
I am magical.
So we were just talking a minute ago before we came on that on TikTok, if you guys look at TikTok, I have a lot of videos that Josh has thrown up there. There's one of them, though, where we went to your classroom there. I forget the name of the program.
Capstone.
Capstone. And I was just randomly ranting with the kids. And that one video, I mean, I guess I don't know what qualifies as viral or not. It's got over 350,000 views. I don't know if you've seen the video or looked at the comments. What's funny to me, though, is like, what we were talking about was a pretty serious topic, on whether or not people that, even if you know they're guilty, if they're entitled to a defense. And the kids, I enjoyed their feedback. They were very honest and open about their thoughts, and I think that's great. Anyway, the comments, though, would range from, pro or con the argument, which is fine, to the majority of them were crapping on my hair or talking about how I said voir dire. It's actually voir dire. It's like French voir dire, I think. And I said what did I say? Voir dire. I think's how I said it.
Dire, yeah.
Yeah, and man, they're just dogging on my pronunciation of it.
Who's in the comments?
I don't know, man. It's somebody in somebody's
Random
basement,
people.
I'm sure.
I
but-
wouldn't have known anything different.
Yeah,
man.
yeah.
That's
And they
wild.
even commented on one of your students that's behind me. They comment on people around you. I mean, it's like 1,000 comments on there. I quit looking at all of them, but it's just random how that works,
And that's the magic of social media is that when you capture something on video and you get it like that, now you get a chance to comb through every detail of everything around you, and you get to point out a kid or a hair or something like that. It's mad.
What's crazy is we'll have TikToks we put a lot of thought into that actually I actually
nobody
work
watches.
on, and then nobody watches. And then that was one I just kind of randomly threw up, and then that was the one that got 300.
Well, all of the ones that we started to get traction on were just really random. Because normally what will happen is once or twice a week, Josh will set time for me and him to meet and film like 20 minutes of TikToks. And so he'll usually have some topics. We film them, and then he does whatever with them during the week, and that's it. I'll usually forget what we've even talked about, and then he drips them on TikTok.
Yeah.
So it's just so random which ones pop up. One thing I did want to talk to you about, though, The Go-Giver.
Mm-hmm.
So I got the book right after I talked to you. I read the book. I've read it. I even started, I don't know if I told you this, but I started a book journal this year. Yeah, I'm pretty proud of myself. Where my goal was to read 50 books this year, start to finish, right? Which doesn't sound insurmountable. Well, I'm at 12 already. So I'm thinking that I might be able to beat that significantly. But the Go Giver is one of them. Well, the way I've been doing it though, so this is what I've learned. For Christmas, I got a Kindle. Okay, and I didn't know if that'd be good or bad because I thought it might be wasteful because I got to carry two things around. But what I found is it feeds this addiction that I have when I'm on the Kindle because it's electronic. Also, because I'm so ADD, I always read 5 or 6 books at a time. And on the Kindle, it's much easier to switch between them because you just click over and open that book up, right? And then the third thing that's really helped is I didn't realize this till I got the Kindle, but Kindle syncs with Audible. So if you have the book on Audible too, I could be driving, listening to the book. Then if I'm on the elliptical, I'm reading the book. If I'm at night in bed, I'm looking at the Kindle. So I'm just not wasting any time on reading books.
Does it keep up with where you're at?
Yeah, the Kindle and the Audible sync. So if you're reading on the Kindle and you get to wherever page 400, 300, whatever, and then you go to Audible, it syncs and knows where you were at and starts off where it left off.
Good.
Huh, that's cool.
Mm-hmm. So I got to know if you're journaling.
Uh-huh.
What's the big standout from the Go Giver? What stood out?
Well, so
are you finished with it?
Yeah, I'm finished with it.
Okay.
Well, that's what I wanted to talk to you about, though, because I struggle with some of the principles in it. Mm-hmm. Because I get it. I mean, I get what he's coming from. It's not a religious book, but a lot of the principles are similar to Christian principles, I think, in my opinion. And I didn't research the author, so I don't know if he had a hidden agenda there or not. But it's, you get what you give type thing. I did like the end where you have to be open to receiving. I think that's important. But I was like, I would struggle the same way. What was the lead character guy's name?
Joe.
Joe. I would struggle the same way that Joe did with Pender's advice on, like at the very beginning when he gives away business.
Yes.
He refers the business out.
So for our audience, people that may be watching that don't know what the book's about, what's like the summary of it?
It's basically and since you're kind of the guru on it, you can elaborate. But it's basically a parable about Joe, this guy who initially is trying to get a leg up in his business. He's trying to get this contract, and then he seeks out this business consultant guy named Pender, who then introduces him. I think it's 5 different folks, 4 or 5 folks that are specialists really in certain areas. And all of the chapters, at the beginning of the chapter, when he meets the person, normally he doesn't realize that's who he's talking to. It's like the girl bringing the coffee, or the guy that runs the Italian place. I think it was Italian place.
Ernesto. Yeah,
Ernesto. That they don't really fit his idea of what this successful person is. And then there's a lesson gleaned from it that he has to immediately use. Anyway, so is that a rough estimate?
Yeah, that's the big idea is how can you they contrast a go-getter versus this idea of go-giving.
Yeah.
And the hustle, the grind, the go get yours, the build, all of that kind of stuff, which is all right. But it's like there's got to be maybe like a different driver.
Hey, turn your mic this way. It's actually on the side. Just flip it towards me more. There you go. Yeah, right. Now I got you.
It's almost like trying to see who the driver or what the driver is for your life if you're going down this path of success. So he introduces into those 5 laws of what they call stratospheric success. And I think that's the big one is what you just said. It's like it immediately runs you into my idea of success is if the door's not open, I got to go knock the door down. Mm-hmm. If I'm not a door knocking down type of person, I got to go out there, and as they use at the beginning of it, is like I need somebody with clout and leverage to be able to get there. Nothing wrong with any of those. Mm-hmm. And kind of the big thing that the book is centered around is giving. At the core, it's like giving. Mm-hmm. And the question that got me on the front end was, he said, I think Joe asked him the question about, it sounds like a recipe for bankruptcy or something like that. Like you're talking about giving away, doing work for free, all that. You're going to run out. Mm-hmm. And he says, it's not that asking if it makes money is a bad question. That's a good question. It's just not the first question. Mm-hmm. The first question should not be if what I'm going to do is going to make me the money that I desire. Mm-hmm. The first question I got to ask is, does it serve? Mm-hmm. Does it add value? Am I actually giving in a sense of making other people's life better? I use it like this with the students in the classroom when we go down the route of real estate or something like that. I say, y'all ever heard the word of appreciation in a home? And it's like, yeah. It's like, you make the house go up in the price. I'm like, yeah, how do you do that though? Mm-hmm. How do you actually make a house more valuable? In a good market, like how would you make a house more valuable? And they go down a list of things, right? They're like, you could paint it. And I'm like, yeah, you could paint it. What else? Remodel, like put a new kitchen in, a bathroom. And I was like, yeah. I said, now how does that look in a person's life? Like, how do you add value or something like, actually serve someone in the sense of appreciating them? Mm-hmm. And usually we say, we usually say something like, if you did something for me, I'd say, I appreciate that.
Yeah.
That's just being polite.
Yeah.
That's not actually appreciating. Mm-hmm. You may have done that for me. If I've done something in your life, mm-hmm. For me to appreciate you is to actually make your life better, bring you to a greater, or have more, be more in quantity and quality. Mm-hmm. So whatever that is in your life, my job then is not to see what can I get out of it, but what can I put into it mm-hmm. to appreciate your life and raise it. So we use those illustrations like that in the classroom. And I think that's what the whole book is. Mm-hmm. It's like, how can I appreciate people? How can I raise their value? How mm-hmm. can I raise them to be better individually with their business, with everything that they're actually attempting to do? I got to find my way of what do I have resourcefully mm-hmm. or in my own hand. What can I do to actually enhance your well-being, your human experience? Like, we can get real general or we can be real specific. How can I appreciate your law firm? Mm-hmm. It's like, I love the work you do. Well, that's nice for being polite, but you're trying to open up a couple of offices.
Yeah.
What can I do to appreciate it? Is there connections I know, resources I know? That's how you would be a go-giver mm-hmm. in that sense. I don't know if that makes sense. But.
No, actually, that I think clarifies some of it in the book. One of the things I did like that it covered, though, is I think a lot of people hear these type messages, and then deep down, though, kind of like Joe did, they're like still thinking of themselves. Like they're still selfishly motivated versus altruistically motivated. Yeah. You know what I mean? And the book kind of addresses that, and it doesn't make you a bad person or a terrible person. It's actually normal. So, and I think that's important for even viewers to realize that we all are human, and I think we all struggle with a lot of the same things. And some of it's trying to keep up with the Joneses and. You know what I mean? Like,
well, you're going down a road now. About a month ago, you had a guest on. I watched it, Ed Doyle.
Yes.
And you asked him a similar question about, you see like he's everywhere. It seems like he's doing a lot.
Yeah.
And I asked him this before. I'm like, bro, how you doing? How are you everywhere? Don't you run out of gas? And he's like, that's my juices. Like, that's where I get it. And there is a difference. And I think the deeper you dive into a principle like that mm-hmm. from a go-giver, and I'm talking with it now through our church, is this. We're going through a particular reading about poverty, riches, and wealth. Mm-hmm. And like, what does that look like? And one of the questions I'm asking them is, what's a limiting belief that you have about yourself, or a limiting belief you have of you, or a limiting view you have of God and him wanting you to be wealthy, and then your default setting mm-hmm. of that keeps you from actually pursuing that type of thing. And so if Ed comes along and starts saying, I get my juice, right? The juices are flowing by doing it. The real quick, it's not that when I go to think about me, it doesn't have to be that I'm selfish. There's a difference between the whole being selfish versus self-interest. Mm-hmm. It's like, if I'm not putting myself in the best place to where I have what I would call an abundance. Mm-hmm. An abundance you can calculate that how you want. Everybody's life would be different. But the abundance would be what I got to have enough of fill in the blank. Mm-hmm. Whatever, so that I can help somebody else. If it's money, I better have enough to take care of my family. If I don't have enough to take care of my family, how am I going to feed or help anybody? Mm-hmm. It's not happening. We know this. It's elementary stuff.
Sure.
So when I'm talking about this to this group of people that we're doing church with, we're doing the same thing of going down this wealth mindset. Is like, to be able to get past the selfishness versus self-interest, and Joe has to deal with the same thing. Mm-hmm. Is I asked my wife this. I put her on there. So April, if you hear this, is we asked her, hey, what's one of these limiting beliefs that you had? And one of the things was a religious belief that she had. Mm-hmm. Like, growing up, there was no importance placed on the acquisition of wealth, because there was this belief about, hey, eternal things are more important. You could die any minute. You can't take money with you.
Yeah.
And I was like, okay, and mm-hmm. like, that's fine. All the way down to any other set of belief you could have that would keep you from getting into this place to be truly successful, in the sense that you're growing, number one, so that you can help other people grow in whatever area it is. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So I've read, so that book opened up some questions, and see, I'm constantly, I I attempt to be very open to self-development. Like I'll be 44 this month, and I still like to think I'm open-minded and that I can often accept that I'm wrong. You know what I mean? So I've read this other book. This is bringing another topic I'm going to ask you about. Just finished it 2 days ago. The Subtle Art of Not Giving a F.
I've read that.
Oh, have you? Okay.
I read it last year, man.
Okay, yeah.
Oh, I love it.
Yeah, it was good. And so, and just for those who don't know what the book's about, the guy writes with humor, and it's got some language in it. But it's really more that it's not that you don't care about things. It's you're selective about where you place that energy.
That's right.
And so I find that interesting. And one of the things it was talking about was contentment. And like contentment, i.e. happiness, I guess. And that a lot of people that accumulate success, traditional success, are then ultimately not happy because they're constantly looking for the next thing. And I'm never content, personally, but I do try to have certain aspects of my life where I'm happy, like for instance, with my wife. I'm content in that I'm not looking for another wife. I have an amazing wife, but at the same time, I want our relationship to always improve. We got to do work on that, right? But like in business, I like my businesses to be successful, and usually the metric, like I changed the metrics this year. I every year, right after Christmas, I have like 2 or 3 days to myself, and I just think and plan on what's this year going to be, right? Yeah. And so this year, one of the things I've shifted with the firm is instead of the first metric being that we're going to make a certain amount of money, gross revenue, right? The first metric is customer satisfaction. And then I've discussed with the staff on what that's going to look like to hit that first metric. But the first, and kind of it was influenced by the Go-Giver, is that the first thing I have to do is be better serving my clients. And then number 2 will hopefully be fulfilled because of number 1, right? Mm-hmm. My point, though, is that I myself have fallen victim to, I don't want to say keeping up with the Joneses, but I guess what I rated success, how I gauged success was in some way materialistic. And I'm learning now that I think that was a mistake, that I don't think that would ever make me happy, I guess. Mm-hmm. And part of it is like one of the goals one year was I wanted to get this car. Well, I get the car, and now I want to get this other car. You know what I mean? Like I want this watch, and that's just a constant cycle.
You know what the Buddhists call it?
What's that?
Hungry ghost syndrome.
Hungry ghost syndrome.
Yeah, it's always like the iPhone 14.
Yeah, you got to have the next thing.
Next one. Yeah. It's always chasing that next thing, and it's a hungry ghost. I think you can't capture.
I think it's dangerous, and I think I feel bad because I feel like in the beginning of where I started to maybe get traditional success, I was very flamboyant with it, and I feel like I may have misled some people that was the metric, that young people especially. And at this point, that was not the right metric. Yeah. I think that if you accumulate more and you can better your life, your family's life, and your community's life, that's a plus. But I think at some point I don't want to say a point of diminishing returns, but there's only so many watches you can have and so many, really, and that's not as fulfilling.
That's right.
I'm also trying to do better at building relationships with people I have a lot of respect for. Like you are on my list. I think you're a very charismatic person. I think you're very intelligent. I think you genuinely try to help the community. And I think the way you think is progressive and smart, and it's just unique for around here. Not to say that people are idiots around here, but you know what I mean.
Well, I was just on the phone coming in here with a pastor, and we were walking through back to this, this thing about the wealth mindset thing. It's not materialistically, but one of the things I'm going into this week is literally that. It's to experience this, to where you can be in a place of fulfillment, peace, call it happiness. There's gotta be a particular environment and a circle of people. And God, I wish a lot of people could hear that. There are certain environments, as much as you want something to grow, it can't. Concrete's not producing crop. It won't. It can't do that. And so we know that. But the default is to like convince yourself that the trying and the struggle is worth it. Yeah. It's like, if I'm grinding, then it's good, and it's not good all the time because environment is probably more conducive. So when you say, I really wanted to ask you, don't name drop or anything like that, but what types of people are you looking to bring into your circle?
Oh yeah, no. So I thought I've actually written this out. I had this a few months ago. I even talked to Jason Cannon about it.
Yeah.
You were on the list. Ed Doyle's on the list. Rod's on the list. I can give you the list.
Yeah.
I don't mind telling them because it's a positive thing, I think. And no knock on people that aren't on there. It's just, but what I was last year, one of the goals I had, and we ended up getting so sidetracked with some internal things that happened in this business, was I wanted to get a group of these progressive-minded, community-centered people, not politicians. I specifically, there's a few people that I think are great in politics, but I still feel like they're almost – I just didn't want people that had encumbrances. So I felt like there were some local people that are leaders that if we got together and pooled our resources and brain power, so much positive could come from it. You know what I mean? And yeah, I even had an idea. Like I forget what the acronym was, but had like an acronym, and I even designed a ring for it.
Oh God!
I thought everybody could get pinky rings. Yeah, no, I was all in. I was like, then they would know they were in the group, you know. But the whole point was this: to try to have sort of an altruistic group that's goal was betterment of the community. You know. Yeah. So when you talk about name dropping, some of those people I just mentioned, I feel like are. You know, they're independently successful, but at the same time, I do think they really do mean they have the good intentions for the community.
But why do you need it, though? I know you think for the community, but why do you need
so,
it?
Well, first of all, I think that you're limited in scope to what you can do on your own.
Yeah.
So, I mean, alone, you can only do so much good or bad, right? The second thing is I think you're the sum of the top 5 people you're around. And so I'm very careful, especially as I get older, because, you know, time is fleeting. You know, every day is a blessing. I don't know what tomorrow's going to bring. I don't know if God's going to give me another day. This may be it, you know. Yeah. And I try to maximize each day. And so I try to not waste time on people that are negative or energy sapping. I try to focus my time on what's going to benefit my family, and my community ultimately. Mm-hmm. So I'm trying to really be careful with who's in that circle, you know. Yeah. And that's why I want to spend more time with you and some of these other people I've mentioned, you know, but sometimes life gets in the way of that.
It does.
So,
it does. Yeah. Interesting. Circles are important, man.
Yeah.
It is.
Well, circling back on the wealth thing or success, what do you think? What do you think is a good gauge for people to use on success? You know, what is success?
What do you mean, a gauge?
What I'm saying is I think I was wrong. A few years ago, I gauged my success based on how much money I was making, if I had certain physical items, material items, and at this point, that was a mistake.
That's such a good man. That's one of those. I think everybody will wrestle with it. I'm walking through something now with my wife, and it really is. I'm reading this book called Who Not How.
Okay.
Get that one.
I haven't heard of that one.
Oh, God. Get that.
I'll get it. I'm reading everything.
It'll talk about what we're talking about right here. The who is more important than the how.
Mm-hmm.
So who, you know, all that, and getting the right people on your team.
Mm-hmm.
But in one of I can't remember what chapter, doesn't even matter. One line he comes out and he says, commitment is identified by results, not by what you say you're committed to.
Mm-hmm.
So basically, the
action's more valuable than words.
Yeah, and the fruit of your life currently, like whatever you have produced right now, good, bad, mediocre, it doesn't matter, is a result of what you have been previously committed to.
Mm-hmm.
So I say that when you say what's the best gauge to go about success, happiness, that kind of thing, is that in your life, I don't want to say these things just naturally happen, but in a sense they do, because you kind of go by where your actions are. Now, whether you like it or not, that's up to you. You got to make the shift.
Mm-hmm.
But what you value is where you spend the most time and money and resources and energy.
True.
Again, if you value TV a lot and you spend it, doesn't mean it's just going to produce the success you may want. Mm-hmm. So you've got to be like unbelievably, brutally honest.
Mm-hmm.
Like one of the greatest things for a student, a real student in life, if you're going to be a student, the real student is not the student that says, I want to learn. The real student is the one, these are good ones. The good students not only say, teach me something, I'm open to learn. They're the ones that come back and ask the question to the teacher, where do I suck?
Mm-hmm.
Like, what am I bad at? Because you want the feedback. You need the feedback. You do that to find out if what I'm doing, how I'm operating, is getting me to the path I want. So if a person is saying, I'm sitting here gauging myself, man, I'm looking at it and saying, all right, where is the most peace? Am I gauging it by the higher power? Is it God? Is it the Bible? Is it myself? Is it society? Is it the money I want? You can come up with a numerical number any day you want. You just pick one. and say whatever that thing is, that's going to be your idea and your version of success. That may be dreamy and fantasy. The truth will be in where have you been committed and what are you actually working at? That's where it gets real. That's where it gets raw, is that if you can actually, you're doing a journal right now, if somebody actually wrote down what they've produced this year, even if it's minimal, it doesn't matter. And then they got to answer the question of, is that what I want? Mm-hmm. And that's what I'm finding out. You want the best gauge for success? Answer the question, what do you want? One of the easiest things to say, you'd be surprised the majority of people cannot answer specifically. Not that bull crap about, what do you want? I just want to be happy. No, we're not talking about
What's the specific metric for it?
What is the specific? Can you actually bring yourself to say it? Mm-hmm. Write that down, make a plan of action to say, I'm going to go after that thing because for me, that's what I want. And so what is the actual thing? So if it's me, one of the things I'm looking at is an acquisition of an apartment. Mm-hmm. I want that. I spent time in Dallas last year. I'm getting around circles of people that's going after that have apartments. There's multimillionaires that's doing it, teaching it, showing it. Mm-hmm. Well, right now I've caught myself and I was like, wait a minute. You've been studying it, but where's the plan of action? Are you going to lay in the limbo of like just studying, reading, catching glimpses here and there? If this is something you want, there's got to be a plan. You find out that that's where the truth comes in. So I don't think it's in the material thing. I think there's got to be whatever the thing is, whatever the success path you want to say is, would have to be mapped, would have to be specific. You'd have to ask those questions. You pull the layers off of it, and you're like, hey, I know what success is. I tell you what I want. I want A, B, and C. Great. Now we got to get down and ask why.
Yeah.
Why do you want this? What's moving it? What's the motivator behind it? And then we can identify, hey, is that a healthy thing? Is that unhealthy? Is the flashy car and watches, is why I want it? Is it to get you to point A and point B?
Yeah.
From point A to B? Is that why you want, the Lambo is because I need to go to the grocery store?
Yeah.
It's fine to have a Lambo. I'm just saying, but is that why? Is it I'm racing or something? So I think that might be a thing.
Yeah. So I agree with all that you said. The one thing that I am trying to advance through, though, even on that analysis, because for years I've been very goal-driven personally, and then I advise other people to be goal-driven. But if you think about it, and I'll tell you this example. David Goggins talks about it in his book. I just read his second one too. What is it called? Never Finished.
Yeah.
It's his new book. It's pretty good. It's not as good as the first one, I don't think, but it was worth reading. And then I also read Atomic Habits. It's another one I read in this book.
I hadn't got through it yet.
Okay, yeah, and it's pretty good. And so one of the things he talks about in Atomic Habits that I found very interesting, because I think I notice reflections on it in my own life, this principle, is that you set goals, and goal setting is good. But again, you don't want your whole life to be driven by, because the problem with goals is a marathon as an example. So I ran the St. Jude Marathon in 2021. I ran the St. Jude Marathon in 2021. And I trained the whole year to run that marathon because I suck at running. I did terrible, but I did finish it. And it was just a personal thing to get through that, sort of motivated by my son in the Navy. But anyway, the point, though, was I ran that marathon, and it was a terrible experience, actually running the marathon. And as soon as I finished, I told my wife, I was like, I'm not running again.
Yeah.
That's it.
Yeah.
And then I didn't run at all for like 6 or 8 months after that. And in the book, he talks about people will set this goal, they're going to run a marathon. They run the marathon, and then they don't run again. Like there's no future benefit from that goal accomplishment, and now they're looking at the next thing. So what he talks about is you've got to focus on the processes and journey, too. Mm-hmm. And you've got the sort of, a goal post or a check post along the way is this goal you set. But if you focus more on the policies and methods, then you'll build habits that you'll start to follow, and not just because you're accomplishing the goal, if that makes sense. Mm-hmm. He also had a bunch of other good principles in there. Like if you're at the beginning of it, you see that 1% improvement every day, which I think is great for everybody. Anyway, I said all that to say this. I'm trying to focus not just so much on the goals, but I'm trying to live in the process, because I think in life it's so fleeting. And the reason that I bring this up is Saturday night, James is my law partner. James is my partner in the cellar with Brian, my law partner, right? Mm-hmm. So there's the three of us that own the cellar. So James, every quarter or so, wants us to go as sort of a team building thing together and do something. So usually we go to a nice restaurant and compare it, and then we'll go to do some deal. So we went Saturday night to Highlander, which is in Collierville. It was nice. I didn't think the ribeye was as good as ours, but anyway, it was nice. And then after that, we went to this pirate thing, this random pirate thing he found in Memphis. And anyway, after that thing, we left, and we were driving on Front Street and went right by the law school. And I had already been fussing that night because Brian and Laura, his wife, my law partner and his wife, rode with me. And I had been fussing about something that's come up with the firm and something we're dealing with. And so anyway, we're driving by the law school, and I was looking at it, and I said, man, that was 3 rough years. Like I remember driving down there with no gas money in my minivan that was half. I was just lucky if it cranked, right? I can remember not having lunch. Like I wouldn't even get to eat because I was worried about the kids eating, didn't have a job, was trying to get through law school. So stressful. And Laura, who's a psychiatrist, brings up Brian's wife. She goes, yeah, and if you saw fast forward now, this is, 10 years in the future, from where you were, you would think you're successful right now. And you'd be like, man, I'd love to have those problems that you got. And she's like, but yet you are so present where you are, you forget, sort of where you, and that's very accurate.
That's it.
Yeah. So anyway, talking about all these goals and everything, that's one thing I'm personally trying to get better at I still set goals and want to accomplish the goals, but I want to focus on the journey through the goals,
Bro, so you bring that's you are exactly right. If any of us looked at 10 years ago, and now you're like, God, man,
I'm in such a great spot.
I should never open my mouth again to complain about anything. And this is something, if I can be biblical for
Sure,
man,
please.
There is something that I'm always reminded about. I got a text yesterday from an 18-year-old young man. He graduated Brighton High last year, just recently went through like this spiritual conversion thing, and he's really like trying to dive in more, just being sensitive spiritually, trying to walk what he calls right and everything like that. And he said, I just finished, this is what his text was this morning at 6:00, right? By the way, that's how you got to disciple people, when they text you at 6:00 in the morning. But he said, I just finished reading Exodus, the book of Exodus, and it seems like we got so much in common with the people today. And I said, you don't say. And we go through having this dialogue between each other, and we're making a list of what you could see in that story versus our life and everything. And one in particular that always seems to get me is that one of the common threads is that there is an emphasis placed on those people with these words: do not forget the Lord your God who brought you out.
Yeah.
So it's always a difficulty when you get into a place that is the newness from where you previously were. So these people were slaves, right?
Yeah.
And now they're free. Well, they don't care about being free because they're not eating while they're free, and they're like, I want that food.
Yeah.
Give me that food. Now it's like, what just happened? You were screaming and crying about being in here. Now I got you out. Now you're complaining about what I'm giving you, even though you think what you had was better. And so there's this constant thing. Now we get out. Now we're good, but we can't wait. We can't wait on Moses. We need something else. So we build calves and worship them. So there's a waiting thing. There's a patience thing. There's all that. And so it leads me to always remember. I'm always trying to remind myself of this gratitude, this expression of thanksgiving. And it's not saying like we teach our kids to be polite. We don't teach our kids gratitude. We actually teach them to be polite.
I agree.
When somebody tells them, somebody does something for them, we say, what do you say? Thank you. And your kids say, thank you. We're not teaching them gratitude. It's just being polite. Gratitude is when you actually go there to where you can feel it and it moves you. And you're like, crap, man, this is so good to be in this spot with some microphones when it was just an idea or something like that. Or, man, I remember I was just telling the story Sunday. I was like, I remember helping start a Boys and Girls Club. I make $400 a month. Go feed your family on that inflation, okay?
Yeah.
Go do that. You can't do that. And now I said, but I walked through and said, hey, these principles of the Go-Giver, I was actually sharing that with them. So these principles I walked through, now it's 6 figures. $400 a month to 6 figures is way different. And now I'm sitting here saying, well, how can I get
this?
Yeah, I got to get something else. But I got to go back to saying, hey, don't sit there and go back and like, oh man, I'm unworthy. No, you're worthy of it. Mm-hmm. You're worthy of what you got right now. But I got to be real thankful.
Another thing I've done, and I'll show you this when we get done. I've got it in my office. I keep another journal with me that's like my goals journal and tracking. Yeah. I'm trying some different things this year. And one of the things I did, and the staff probably hates it. Josh has probably got his over there. I started making every Sunday evening, I make all of them a task list for the week. And it's got on the top part over there the goals for the firm, their individual goals, so we can meet and discuss how I can help them accomplish their individual goals, and then individual tasks for the week as a way for me, as a, sort of a metric for me to see if they're being productive, right? Mm-hmm. Well, I've done it for myself. I've got my own goals sheet, and on mine, it's got a gratitude section, and I added that because of the Go-Giver, because I feel like I've neglected that. I feel like I haven't shown gratitude properly, not the way God wants me to or the way that I should have regardless. And so what I have on there is it's 3 check boxes where just because I try to do what's attainable. Each week I have to do 3 things that show gratitude for someone else. Yeah. And that's one. I've also got cold plunge on there for 3 times. Ooh. And man, that one's rough. I'm not going to lie. Because I don't have a cold plunge tank yet. So what I do is I just turn the shower on and get in until it gets warm. Okay.
I've been wanting to do this. Yeah. I get in the shower, but I hadn't done the plunge.
Yeah. Well, I think the shower might be worse because it takes my breath. And you know, it's hitting you, and I think I haven't done the plunge, not officially, but in any event, my point was, I got this sheet, you know, and so it's funny you bring up gratitude because I'm trying to do that also. Yeah, I'm trying to show.
How do you do it? How do you do it? See, that's what I'm curious about.
So far, I've only done the 2 weeks because we're 2 weeks in, 2 or 3 weeks in. So the first 2 weeks, what I did is I wrote thank you notes. That's what I did. Is I actually did a thank you note. One of them I put a gift card in it. And it was unprompted, and it was just because someone had done something that I was very thankful for, and I wanted to show some gratitude for it.
Yeah, that's a good one. That's wild, man.
That's kind of an easy cop-out way, but it's just, again, steps towards showing more gratitude. Mm-hmm. And I'm trying to be much more present and content in where I am. Because, again, if I look back, like I did that martial arts thing, right? So I've done that place forever, 30-plus years. Yeah. And I remember when Sarah got pregnant, we were in high school. I was 18, she was 17. I was teaching karate, and I was making like $60 a week is what I was making. And I vividly remember this. I remember when we found out she was pregnant, all these thoughts go through your teenage brain. You don't know what you're going to do. Your whole life has changed now because I had to decide whether to be a man, I guess, stay up and, you know, be the good, what I was raised to think was a good man, right. You know, be the daddy, or follow what my other plan was I was going to the Air Force Academy. So, I mean, I had decisions to make. But what I remember is, in that moment, I remember thinking, I don't know how to write a check. That's what I remember. I was like, that's what made me nervous. I was like, I'm supposed to raise a kid, and I don't even know how to write a check, right? But if I look back from that 18-year-old boy to now, oh, man, that 18-year-old would think I'm just this demigod, you know, over here with the things that... But then it's still, I struggle with contentment where I am now, you know? Yeah. I'm just trying to get better at all that, be more mindful.
That's good, man. That's good. Some gratitude practicing. That's funny you did that, man. That was last week I did the same thing.
Really?
I kid you not. The gentleman I met in Dallas that's into these apartment deals, he invited us to his house day after New Year's Day. Go to his house, hang out. First thing that we do, walk in the door, see this guy. Remember, I only met him, you know, one day in Dallas, and he lives in Mississippi, and that was the connection. I was like, hey, man, I'm not, you know, I'm 50 minutes from you. Go down there, opens the door, wife smiling. She's cooking us a meal. Like, she knows
like
we're
your
coming.
Pinder situation.
Bro, it's wild, man. She's cooking us a meal. She's like, we're having Chinese, and she's cooking this stuff, and it's like, dude, it's rich. It's a man's meal. She's not giving us a little plate. I mean, she's giving it to us. So he takes us on this huge patio, has everything laid out. And I'm just observing everything. I'm like, look at the hospitality, man. Look, this guy knows how to treat guests, man. This is great. Teach me, old wise man, right? Go through there and do it, man. We spend like 4 hours with this guy, picking his brain on everything. And I remember asking him a question about some specific thing in there. I'm trying to remember what it was. It was a particular question. I remember his answer to it was his wife had written a handwritten note. Oh, they were trying to purchase a property, and they were interested in this particular property. He said instead of sending them like a certified letter of some type of something where they're saying, hey, I want to look at your property, I want you to consider our offer. He said my wife wrote a handwritten note, put it in the person's mailbox, and that was they called us because of that. It was like personalized. So I heard that and I was like, hey, when I had that experience with him, I went back the ride home and I'm talking to the young man that I was with, and I was like, bro, we're writing that man a letter because they value letters.
Yeah.
And his wife wrote a letter. We're going to write him a letter, but it was because of the feeling that he gave, the experience that he gave. I was like, man, I feel so good about this, and how can I express it? It's like you can't give that man money.
Yeah.
You could. I mean, you give everybody money, they should take it, but what's the expression of it? I think that's what it is.
Well, sometimes I don't even know if it's because the person that you're trying to get to receive the gratitude values it or not. I think some of it is for your own spiritual growth to give the gratitude. Yeah. Like a lot of young people nowadays, especially, I don't know that they value notes or thank you notes or whatever, but old school way, that's very valued. It's kind of like Christmas cards that are kind of falling by the wayside.
Yeah.
So sometimes I think it's just the act of taking the time to write it and send it into the world, and it's almost like positive karma,
That's right. That's right. It's got to mean something to you. Like whatever actually that you give time and thought to, that's the greatest expressions of gratitude. You know what sucks? Giving socks for presents, Christmas presents. Don't do
I don't
that
know.
crap.
Sometimes you need socks.
We need to stop all that. I'm putting everybody on notice right now. When Christmas comes, birthday comes, do not give anything that somebody can just go get. You know what my wife gave me this year?
What's that?
Dude, she got me this Christmas present. By the way, anybody out there listening, I'm a big Notre Dame fan. Football, baby. Go Irish.
Okay.
Listen. This year, I never even showed interest in this. We go to Notre Dame at least once a year. I go to Notre Dame in October, me and my son and my cousin. While they're up there, I'm FaceTiming my wife. My son, we see these Letterman jackets. They're like, I don't know, $300-400, right? And the guy at the store we had is like a memorabilia store. So really nice material, leather jackets, all this real nice stuff. You get out there and I FaceTime her and I was like, look what my son, look what Micah's got on. You see that jacket? It's pretty nice, ain't it? Micah, you want that? That kind of thing. No, Daddy, I don't want it. My cousin's got one. He's really thinking about buying one. He doesn't. He puts it back. That's it. End of story, right? That's October. I come on home, don't think anything of it. This woman proceeded to spend 2 weeks calling this store, having conversations with this man that owns the store, talking to my cousin, trying to find the exact one. Ends up, she says, I got a gift for you. I opened this thing up and I see it. I almost cried, bro. Yes, I did. I literally, a tear came up, dude, and I pulled it back. I had to put my head down. I guess I say that because, if you're talking about gift giving or expressing, I don't think we give gifts just because I hope we don't. I hope we're not giving gifts just to be seen or to make us feel good. Because we feel good, we're giving it. And in return, we're hoping to have an impact on somebody else. So this gratitude, I would hope, my wife's listening, I would hope that she would give that because she loves me and she's expressing some thankfulness, gratitude, love, expression type thing. And man, does it register. It registers when you do the thing that you know would really impact that person, make them feel like that. So I think we miss it a lot of times. I think we give people what's convenient. And I think we give what's comfortable and what we like.
Yeah.
I don't know if we really pay attention to the other person. So if you really get into gratitude, man, and the expression of it, it'll get into that other side. So even if you're going in spiritual stuff, what does that look like with God? How do you give God something? Well, you got to find out.
I'll tell you on that, that's one thing that Ed really struck a chord with me roughly a year ago or whenever he first got here. I went to the first church under the tree they had, the very first one, and I vividly remember what he talked about. And what he was talking about was how we pray. And what struck me on it was he was right on what he said, because often my prayers had become robotic. It was I'm laid down in bed, I say the same thing. Look over the kids, look out for us, keep us healthy. Thank you,
man.
And that's it. And it's just it's not passionate.
Yeah,
it's not fervent before an all-powerful God. So he talked about on your hand the 5 steps of prayer, right? And the very first one though was you give gratitude to God. Yeah. The first thing is thank God, and I hadn't been doing that.
Okay.
So that was something that in my own prayers I tried to develop. One thing is, as we were talking though, that I wanted to mention too, because I'm curious what you think about this. Again, as I've done this self-reflection the last few months, I'm trying to make this year a year of personal growth for me. Okay. So a lot of the goals that I have, and the reason is I feel like if I focus on me on personal growth, it'll in turn help me reach more people and be better in the community and serve my family and clients and everybody better if I'm taking care of personal development. So anyway, on the sheet I also have, and this is another thing I'm struggling with, so I'm curious, because you and I are similar in a couple of ways. I think I'm a little more ADD than you.
Yeah, you are.
Yeah, but I've got quiet time. Which could be meditation or whatever.
Okay.
I've got 3 sections. I'm supposed to do 15 minutes 3 times a week of quiet time. Cannot do it.
Yeah, dude.
It's really killing me.
That is the real prayer right there.
Yeah.
That is. Yeah. That is. Because we could go to... I've been in this spiritual Christian life, I would say, since 99. So what are we at now? 23, 4 years-ish?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
In the front 6 or 7 years was the praying to God, seeking God with expression. Mm-hmm. I soon found out when I got to Ohio, I got taught by a gentleman who taught Hebrew. So he taught me from an Eastern mindset. And everything shifted from my prayer or gratitude and expression to God as being external or something that I can say as prayer, the things I need to ask, request, talk to God about, to more of very much being quiet, and went all inward. Everything was inward, and I found out that communication at its deepest level was not seeing if I could get you to understand me, but the amount of energy and concentration it takes to actually listen. Mm-hmm. Even in this conversation, like to have a meaningful conversation, we would all have to be participating in some level of listening. Mm-hmm. And there's different levels of listening. It's like, man, I can listen to what you're saying so that I can make my point. Then there's active listening, where I'm actually asking, seeking, throwing more questions at you, trying to gain a little bit more insight, find out who you really are, what's going on there. Mm-hmm. Do that with God. And what does that look like? I'll tell you, it don't look like a whole lot of nothing in the first beginning. When you do it, you're like, I'm just sitting here quiet, dealing with my own thoughts. Yeah. Boy, is that a nightmare. I mean, I did a small study. This was 3 years ago in my classes at high school. Yeah. Kid you not, like I got 3 classes, usually 70 to 80 students. Mm-hmm. I asked all of them, like how many of you along the lines of question, a variation of this question about how easy is it for you to be alone by yourself, quiet, without phones or anything like that, with your own thoughts? Yeah. I think the number was like between 73, 70 something, in the 70 percentile of all those kids. 70% of those kids said, I don't want no part of it. Mm-hmm. I don't want any part of being by myself. I need noise. I need something. I think that speaks to something, man. That speaks to like the amount of stimulation that we're just accustomed to having. Yeah. But being able to get to a place where you can go find out, not just you, man, but like, I really believe this. I really believe to your core. You are spirit, man. You come from that. It'd be really helpful if we could hear from that area of our life. And that really talk about the exercise. That is a constant pounding of the pavement. You got to go back to it and keep going. But you'll find some of the greatest things there. Yeah. I think that's where you find it. Matter of fact, that's the answer to a lot of the questions that we have about the success question. Mm-hmm. That answers the question about, the decisions that you're trying to make. When you go to the place of like, oh man, should I take this job or should I sell my house? Should we move? What circle of people do I need to be in? Get quiet enough so that you can eliminate or bring down all of the noise around, the influences around you, and get down to like core stuff, and you'll get the answer.
Yeah, I think people really struggle. You're right with that. And there was some study I read recently that was saying that the current young teenage generation, their attention span is less than that of a field mouse. A field mouse has a longer attention span, and a lot of it's because of the phones and all the stuff. It's constant. I mean, think about even compared to 30 years ago.
Oh, yeah.
The amount of stimulus that people have, the amount of knowledge we have access to is so voluminous compared to what it was. One thing, though, on this quiet time thing that, again, I always value it. It's important at different times to evaluate yourself, where you are, especially with businesses and stuff, where you're going to go. And you can't do that with noise. You got to have time, right? But when I ran that marathon, I bring that back up because it was a big cathartic thing for me. The whole point of the marathon was I struggled the whole year with the fact that my son was in the Navy and he was going in the SEAL program and was going to potentially face evils that I had never faced even as a cop. Yeah. And here I am, my whole life been a father, and I was struggling with who I am if I'm not his dad. Every business I had done and everything was motivated by bettering my children's position. Yeah. And so if my child is in the world and I can't do anything about it, I was really struggling. Yeah. So it started in February. We had a real bad snowstorm, and I started running. I just got up, and it was like, if he's running, I'm running. And like he was in boot camp. So I took off running. I remember I was crying, and it's snowing, and I'm running and thinking about my son, and So anyway, fast forward, I decided to do the marathon. Had a running group and everything to support it. Even got these bands right here. Is Carry the Boats was the group, right, for Alex. So we get to the marathon. Well, I had earbuds, and I had downloaded books and podcasts and stuff.
You're ready for the journey,
man. I
was
ready because I knew it was going to be some time, right? Yeah. So my AirPods didn't work. And I had even brought a backup, and they didn't work.
Yes.
So I had to run the entire marathon in my own head. Pain, the whole thing, wanting to quit, not quit. That was the most difficult part. The physical part sucked, but the fact that I was in my own head for 6 hours, with nothing but the pain and grind of, it was a lot of self-reflection in that 6 hours. So I do think that people should better value quiet time, both for spiritual needs, but also just mental clarity, where you're going and direction you're going to go and things like that. Like you said, analyzing what your goals are. But you got to make it a priority nowadays. So there's so much noise.
If you're doing 15 minutes a day, right?
Well, 3 times a week. So I'm not doing. Right, I need to do it every day, but I'm only trying 3 times a week.
I'm curious. So what was the attempt? Like, how do you position yourself? It's almost like the question I asked about, not how much sleep do you get at night, but how do you prepare to go to sleep?
Yeah.
Does anybody? I mean, I don't know if anybody else does. I used to do it good. Some days I'm good. Some days I'm not.
Yeah, I'm not good at it.
Yeah, like do you fall asleep? Like you just go unconscious?
Yeah, no.
Or is there a preparation for it?
I definitely don't do that.
You don't do it. You just fall asleep, right? Wherever you lie, that's where. And that's it. But I asked because how do you enter into the 15 minutes?
Yeah. I guess I haven't gotten a pattern yet because I've really tried to make it a priority these last few weeks, the last couple of weeks. And I tried initially just literally, so my wife goes to work before me usually. So in the morning, there's a little space there where I'm alone. Okay. And so I had tried to started by sitting on the end of my bed, sitting there, closing my eyes, being with my thoughts. But I struggle with my thoughts wander, you know? And so in meditation, and a lot of the Eastern philosophies with meditation, they'll have different things that they focus on during the meditation to try to center their thoughts. So for instance, some of them will focus on their breathing. Some of them will focus on the ring of a bell, just the ding of a bell, and try to keep the brain there. And then you let your thoughts come and go, and they just sort of wash over you. And I've always struggled, and I do think it's because I'm so ADD. The one that I felt like I got the most success out of, though, was I did the cold plunge. I got in the shower, freezing cold. It was terrible. Takes my breath. It takes about a minute and a half. I know because I time it. Yeah. It's about a minute and a half for the water to warm up. Water warms up. I do my business in the shower. And then I would sit in the hot water, like with it running on me, because the monks would do this too. Okay. And I sort of focused just on the water. And then I tried to focus on my breathing and thoughts while I was in there. And I did seem to get some peace from that way. And I pray during it too. It's not like it's all prayer. It's just sort of wherever my mind takes me.
That's right.
On the focus. So, yeah.
See, and that's even gets down to like your belief in how God even hears you. Right? Like think about it for a minute. If you're sitting here saying, all right, like you just used two different words. And I wondered if you meant the same thing, but you were saying I meditated, and then when I was in the shower or something, and I prayed.
Mm-hmm.
So I've gone to the place of saying, yeah, you're doing the same thing, right? It's like I'm reading this nighttime little children's book to my 3-year-old daughter, and it's called Peter's Perfect Prayer Place. And everything in the book is Peter is trying to find a place because he knows mommy is praying in her room. Mm-hmm. And so he says, I need to find the perfect prayer place like mommy. Maybe I can pray in the kitchen, under the cabinet with all the pots and pans. And he gets in there and he's like, no, it's too loud. And then he goes to his tent and he's like, I'll get in there and pray. No, it's too dark. And it walks him through this whole step. I'll go outside on the swing and I'll pray out here. No, it's too noisy. Cats and dogs are in the picture and it's running.
Yeah.
And he goes through all of this and he sits down with his daddy. And his daddy says, hey son, you got to know that God hears you wherever you are, right? And he gives him that encouragement, like, it doesn't matter where you are, and it doesn't matter when you do it.
Yeah.
God will hear you all the time. And it's one of those, well, he changes his mind. The young boy is like, oh, well, now I know God is good because he hears me wherever, and I can pray anytime. So what I'll do is, and he focuses on, he identifies, I can do this anytime, but as long as I'm doing it. And it's one of those, like, do we go there into things? Sometimes we get lost in the practice or the specifics of it,
yeah.
and maybe lose the heart of it. But I think it's interesting, man, when you go down the meditate or the verbal pray, and it's one of those, like, where is God and how do I interpret God's relationship with this whole experience, if that's what I'm actually doing, right? Because I don't know. I mean, sometimes meditation and prayer means different things to different people.
Yeah, well,
it's one of those, like, is it just to get in touch with me? Is it get in touch with, something greater than me? You know, I gotta find that out.
Yeah, well, I'm open to. I talk to all kinds of people. You know, I mean, I'm professed as a Christian, but my views on Christianity are probably unique compared to a lot of people.
Okay.
And I'll even talk about that. I don't care. Yeah. But my point is, like,
what's the most unique? I'm sorry, I got to. What's the most unique that you think the most unique view you have? If say
for this area. I would say,
we'll go this area.
Yeah,
so everybody listen, would be this area.
For this area, I feel like I don't think all other world religions are necessarily wrong.
Okay.
I think most religions are based on the same creator. We just interpret it differently. Mm-hmm. So I think that Allah in the Muslim faith is the same God that I worship. Yeah. They just don't view that Jesus is. They think he's a prophet, not part of the Trinity of
Correct.
God that I believe, right? But I think it's sort of similar. I also think that in, like, the Hindu faiths, I think that even though they have different, so supposedly different deities for different stuff, I think ultimately their lead God is the same God.
Okay. And
I also think that, well, I don't think you have to go to church to be saved, and a lot of people around here would agree with that. But I think that it's more about what you do in action as a person than it is about actions at church, if that makes sense. Mm-hmm. In my opinion, as long as you profess that Jesus is the Son of God, he's your Savior, he died for your sins, you're a sinner, and you ask for forgiveness, you're a Christian, and you're going to go to heaven. Yeah. And there's a lot of other components we can argue over, but to me, they're just not as relevant.
That's good. Yeah. That's fascinating, man. Yeah. That's fascinating. Even to the church thing. Mm-hmm. It's like even the view of church, be saved. You said you doesn't necessarily have to be go to church to be saved. Mm-hmm. Pretty accurate. Definitely need, like, connection and community.
Well, I think it helps reinforce staying on the path.
Oh yeah.
But I think it says that where two or more are gathered in my name, exactly. I shall be there also.
This is a point of contention with me, is that there is a slight difference, historically speaking, even the way the emergence of the whole, and I'm going to use a word specifically for this area, the institutional church, mm-hmm. right? So there is an institution.
I struggle with the institutional church.
I can't. That's a tough one. That's a tough one for me, man. It is, because it's different from an institutional establishment of where people can congregate versus those same people developing, nurturing, and intentionally pursuing some level of relationship out there. Now, of course, the institution will argue back and say, well, of course, that's why we design it with small groups in mind and connections and stuff like that, to where they can kind of incorporate people in there. And that's all well and good. I've been part of all of those. The unfortunate thing that's lost is that when it becomes institutional, the institution has to create culture. And by creating culture, they usually emphasize certain components of what they want to put out as what they call spiritual worship or activities. And by doing it, they have to use a certain amount of money to do so. They have to use a certain amount of money, attention, energy, efforts. Everything goes toward the main thing that they're trying to bring people into. That's what makes it an institution. And so it gets down to the path of consumerism or theater. And sometimes Sunday is one of the greatest theaters you ever will be part of. Unfortunately, theater is not what we're supposed to do if you're going to experience God on a particular personal level. And so it would happen inside community. So I struggle with the idea of, matter of fact, I'd challenge any institutional church and pastor right now, please, I'd love to have a conversation with how you do. And I'm pretty versed in it. I've helped plan a couple of churches over the years. And so I'm very familiar with it. But how do you make big things small and not small commercially? Like, it has to be genuine, organic, and authentic. Like, how do me and you get a chance to talk? Like, there has to be intentional pursuit behind it. So if you ever get down to like this real intimate relationship with Almighty God, it has to happen. Number one, it has to happen with people. Mm-hmm. How do we make that, or how do we experience that authentically, where it's not commercial driven, where, you know, I'm trying to get people to a particular event for 50 minutes or something. Like, my Christianity cannot be 65 minutes on a Sunday. Come on, man, it can't.
Yeah,
and we know that. But
so I mentioned all this to Ed, right, back when one of the first times Ed was on here, and I don't think he knew. We hadn't discussed anything beforehand, just like now. He just come in, sat down, we start talking, and I kind of gave him my spiel about against organized religion. And then what I liked was Ed's church under the tree thing answered every objection I had. So I showed up. So I went several times. I haven't been in a while. It's my fault. I'm a terrible person. Sunday's at 3:00. Yeah. But, I mean, it's out in the open. Because one of the other problems I had is I don't like how some churches discourage certain people from coming, regardless of race or gender or sexual orientation or all that. Jesus didn't.
That's right.
You know, Jesus went and hang out with the...
Well, see, that's the flip, though. That's the flip. If you really start digging into that, just one thing you just said is that not only did Jesus not forbid it, Jesus wasn't in the business of saying, come and see me. Mm-hmm. It was the complete flip.
That's true.
It's like Jesus was mobile. Mm-hmm. He was mobile. We're very rarely are we mobile anymore.
Yeah.
We game plan and facilitate an attraction for people to come meet us inside our controlled environment. Christians are very uncomfortable with going into an environment that they can't control.
Yeah.
That's going to mess some stuff up. And so you got to be skilled at that. You cannot just be a canned, biblical, answered Christian, packaged up, wrapped up in everything, getting people. Most people that share their faith is usually a church invitation. Mm-hmm. They don't share their faith. They invite people to their facilities. That's what they do, and they hope the pastor takes care of it.
Yeah. But
owning the responsibility of me serving, communicating, sharing my faith and what that means on any level. I mean, it could be...
I would challenge you then to come to one of the church. I don't know if you've been to the church under the tree.
Oh, yeah, I've been a few times.
Okay, because, you know, he allows everybody to share.
Of course.
You know, you give your, sometimes your testimony or your own insight into things. It's not really necessarily one person preaching to you. Yep. And they welcome everybody in the community there. So I enjoyed it. And to me, it countered, there's no money. He's not asking for money at all. I mean, Ed funds it all himself. Yeah. You know, I mean, I don't know if people know that, but he feeds them all. Generally, it's out of his pocket.
Right.
The whole thing is his time and his money, which is why Ed is such an anomaly, man. Like, I still don't have him figured out. I told Ed this.
Ed, we don't have you figured.
I still don't have Ed figured out, man. Like, I feel like he's... I told somebody, my wife and I were talking about it. Ed, to me, he definitely wants and tries to be, you know, one of the most genuine, greatest people you could be around. I really think so. But I think that Ed might have some monsters back there that he's trying to keep at bay. And he doesn't, he's got them back in and he's protecting them protecting us from them by doing all this positive stuff.
Us from
yeah,
them.
yeah, I don't know.
Hey, but that's why I connected with Ed, was when he moved here. I didn't know who he was. Some people told me about him. But when me and my wife left the institutional church, and by the way, I love everybody in the institutional, just the model, the method of it, it's not attractive to me. We started meeting in our home. So I got like 14 people that meet in our home every week. And we do groups outside different parts of the day or different parts of the week on Wednesdays and other days. And we did that when I heard about Ed doing. I was like, yeah, that's it, man. That's how you rock out right there, bro. You get with. And so meet out in your workplace and all that and do it on some real stuff, man, so people can get the actual experience of what we would call God. I think that's powerful, man. I do.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah.
Well, man, I really enjoyed talking with you, Brandon. I hate to cut you off, but I got to go do trivia here in a minute at the Cellar.
Trivia.
You ought to come to that. It's at 6:30 every Tuesday at the Cellar.
That's good, man. I appreciate it, man.
Have you been out? Have you eaten at the restaurant? I can't remember if I've seen you there.
I've asked somebody. No, I asked Sarita Austin about it, and she said it was great, and I have not got a chance.
Well, you have to let me know when you're coming. We'll take care of you.
I'll tell my wife.
We're very. I'm very biased, but I think we have really good steaks. So it's
What is that, like steak every night?
I've been eating steak almost every night. Look, Brian called me yesterday because sometimes we'll go there for lunch, just a couple of us. And he was like, "You want a ribeye again?" I was like, "Man, I'm about ribeyed out."
Yeah,
they're good, but you can only eat so many ribeyes.
What's this? This is the 17th. Let me get there this month. I'll get there this month. Give me
holler at me. I'm there 3 to 4 nights a week. And then James, the other partner, is there almost all the time. He manages the place. But I do the events and the branding and marketing.
Okay.
And so tonight we have trivia. I'll be there for that. And I'm usually there when we do the music acts on Friday. So it's good. It's a bumping place on the weekend, man.
Yeah, man. Yeah. I love your TikToks, too.
Well, thank you very much.
I was watching
and thanks for letting us come to your class.
You're coming all the time as long as you want, man.
Oh, man. Well, you just let me know. I love going and doing it. Obviously, I don't mind running my mouth.
Matter of fact, I'm glad you said this about the circle. And if anybody, and I'm not putting it out here as an advertisement or anything like that, but there's something that I've been personally wanting to do.
Yeah.
And that is collect a handful of men to have a regular meeting of something with their area of expertise, with faith and all of that, to be able to equip, empower, ask questions, have a time out for, in your case, what's the drink you have right
That's Elijah Craig.
Elijah Craig, my God, I've never heard that in my life.
Yeah.
I've never
Really? Elijah Craig's one of the
I've never heard that.
Standbys for bourbon.
I mean, when my wife just told me Hennessy, I was like,
yeah, I don't drink Hennessy.
But it would be cool, man, for any guys that's like wanting to connect, grow in their faith kind of thing, just to be able to help and serve in that.
Well,
kind
so
of way.
as a side note, real quick, we used to have up here when I first joined with Brian what we called a mastermind session.
Yeah, okay.
And all it was like Saturday or Sunday afternoon, a group of us guys would get together and we would literally talk about what's your goals, how can I help you facilitate, what advice on those goals. And man, I'll even open up to the office for use. We have a conference room. If people want to meet, we can always come here and use the office.
We'll talk, man. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm all about it. You got to get people that are open-minded though for growth.
That's right.
And a lot of people, especially when they get old in their head, they're not physically old, but they get sort of old thinking that this is where they are, and then they just stay there. Mm-hmm. And you want people that, I think you have to have people that are willing to be open to growth.
That's it.
Yeah.
That's it.
So,
all right.
Well, man, I love you.
Thank you, bro.
Yeah, thanks for coming on. And thank you guys for watching another Law Talk. Again, I want to thank Brandon Armstrong for being on with us. Oh, where can they find you, Brandon? If they're going to look you up, if they're going to find you on social media.
Yeah, find me everywhere. Facebook, Instagram. I hadn't put anything on TikTok, but that's coming soon. I told you before, I think, when we started.
And you may be doing a podcast, too.
Yeah, podcast coming soon. Me and my wife are working out some details on that, but that's going to be coming. So, but yeah, get in touch with me. Facebook, I pop up every now and then on there.
Well, when you do all that, we'll have you back on. We'll talk about it some more.
You got it, man.
Where are we at, Josh? TikTok. Make sure you check out our TikTok. I have to see the lower thirds. I don't know what I'm talking about. We were just talking about our TikTok. You can make fun of my hair and my accent. It's fine. I don't care. NA the band, Wonder Girl's out right now. It's a free single they have. You can download the full album on Valentine's Day. It's all free, so please go check out NA the band. They're on Apple, iTunes, Spotify, etc. And Michelle Allen, we're just talking about real estate. She'll hook you up with some apartments. She's your go-to in the area for buying, selling, renting, leasing real estate. She's just genuinely a good person, too. Has been very supportive of the Kickin Lawyer. And we have Mason's High Octane Martial Arts located in Covington since '93. We're on our 30-year anniversary. You want to make your own Kickin Lawyer or black belt, just give us a call, masonsmartialarts.com. And the Cellar is where I'm headed right now. 6:30 every Tuesday we have trivia. Friday nights we have live music. Great food all the time. Opens at 4 p.m. daily, so you guys come see us at the Cellar. And then Masonite Digital Marketing. Josh is ready to help you with your online presence, whether it's websites, social media posts, etc. He'd be glad to help you. And you guys that listen to the show, first of all, I thank you a lot. But, always leave comments if you have any ideas or thoughts about the things we talk about. I think I can speak for Brandon in that both of us are very open to learning and growing. And so sometimes you guys can give us some insight into things that we might have said and, we either need to reconsider or think about, or it would just like to have your input. So please feel free to leave comments. We'll be back hopefully live next Tuesday with another Law Talk. As always, I hope you guys have a good week. Keep kicking. Thanks for watching, guys. Just remember that this is not legal advice or investment advice or business advice. This is for fun and entertainment purposes only.